们把位置先站起来，我们先把位置站起来，所有的位置，因为是像这个太阳那个市场，然后你跟他说，那然后对于我要问他，你也不用问这个，哦，对的，在这里，我们在这边看，去啊。
叶伦进来了，叶伦进来了，叶伦进来了。
好，谢谢你。
叶伦太小只了，他会被人挡埋没。叶伦进来了，叶伦在慢慢到处点头，点头。
不好意思。
People, but also for addressing the global challenges the world faces. And as we seek to achieve our shared vision of an open, dynamic, resilient, and peaceful Asia-Pacific community, coordination and collaboration among our economies is crucial and important. The United States has been glad to help further this vision and our coordination by hosting APEC this year. Throughout the year, APEC members have met across the United States to cover a wide range of key topics. And as we work collectively and individually to advance our vision, finance and fiscal policies are among the most powerful tools we have. This is why the United States elevated the finance ministers meeting to be part of APEC Economic Leaders Week this year. And 2023 has been a pivotal year for the finance ministers process. After several years during which we rightly prioritized our response to and then our recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic, we've now refocused on the longer-term priorities established by APEC finance ministers in the 2015 Cebu Action Plan. The action plan emphasizes strengthening financial resilience and advancing fiscal reforms to build our economies over the long run. This effort starts with a full understanding of the global and regional economic and financial outlook, which we'll discuss in session 1. We'll then turn to the 3 priorities we've focused on throughout this year: modern supply-side economics, sustainable finance, and digital assets. Let me highlight the progress we've made and where we hope to focus today for each of these priorities. First, in discussions this year, we've advanced our thinking on what I've been calling modern
叶伦进来了，叶伦进来了，叶伦进来了。哦，看到。叶伦也太小只了，他会被人埋没哎。OK， 叶伦进来了，叶伦正在慢慢的走进去，到处点头，点头，点头。我们终于见到叶伦奶奶了，她真的好小只哦。 他在瞧椅子哎，怎么这么趣味？幕后花絮啊，各位，没看过叶伦奶奶瞧椅子吧？ OK， 叶人坐下来了。他就立刻坐下来办公了，没有跟任何人寒暄。哦，蓝逢安有动作。这一位不知道是哪位，印尼代表。 嗯，就是在那个香港代表旁边，女生。在自拍吗？这个是 ，Yeah。
必须要了解这个时代。
对，对。他们一直在自拍。叶伦在跟谁讲话？
addressing it any less urgent. We need to further improve our long-term economic outlook by boosting labor supply, innovation, and infrastructure investment in ways that are also sustainable and reduce inequality. We need to put ourselves on a sustainable growth path, one where we safeguard our planet while providing our economies with the clean energy they need to grow. And we need to leverage emerging technologies to drive innovation while maintaining safe financial markets. With that, thank you again for your work.
对不起，太对不起。
进来了，进来了。 轮进来喽。
好，谢谢你。哇，
叶伦太小只了，它会被人埋没。叶伦进来了，叶伦现在慢慢进去，到处点头点头点头。
不好意思。
People, but also for addressing the global challenges the world faces. And as we seek to achieve our shared vision of an open, dynamic, resilient, and peaceful Asia-Pacific community, coordination and collaboration among our economies is crucial and important. The United States has been glad to help further this vision and our coordination by hosting APEC this year. Throughout the year, APEC members have met across the United States to cover a wide range of key topics. And as we work collectively and individually to advance our vision, finance and fiscal policies are among the most powerful tools we have. This is why the United States elevated the finance ministers meeting to be part of APEC Economic Leaders Week this year. And 2023 has been a pivotal year for the finance ministers process. After several years during which we rightly prioritized our response to and then our recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic, we've now refocused on the longer-term priorities established by APEC finance ministers in the 2015 Cebu Action Plan. The action plan emphasizes strengthening financial resilience and advancing fiscal reforms to build our economies over the long run. This effort starts with a full understanding of the global and regional economic and financial outlook, which we'll discuss in session one. We'll then turn to the three priorities we've focused on throughout this year: modern supply-side economics, sustainable finance, and digital assets. Let me highlight the progress we've made and where we hope to focus today for each of these priorities. First, in discussions this year, we've advanced our thinking on what I've been calling modern
叶伦进来了，叶伦进来了，叶伦进来了。哦，看到。叶伦太小只了，它会被人埋没哎。OK， 叶伦进来了，叶伦正在慢慢走进去，到处点头点头点头。我们终于见到叶伦奶奶了，她真的好小只哦。她在瞧椅子哎，怎么这么趣味？幕后花絮啊，各位，没看过叶伦奶奶瞧椅子吧？OK， 叶伦坐下来了。
everyone please welcome the 78th Secretary of the Treasury, Janet Yellen.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining today. I've been very glad to chair the 2023 Finance Ministers meeting here in San Francisco over the past 2 days. And the United States has been proud to host APEC throughout this year. Hosting APEC is one of the many ways the Biden administration is broadening and deepening our economic ties across Asia-Pacific economies. APEC economies are at the center of the global economy and our world's economic future. The United States' engagement with other APEC economies strengthens the U.S. economy, benefits American workers and firms, and advances American interests. It's bringing significant benefits to the region as well. And cooperation across APEC economies is also key to tackling the challenges we all face, including the urgent threat of climate change. Over the past year, APEC members have advanced our shared vision of an open, dynamic, resilient, and peaceful Asia-Pacific region through finance track engagements. And today's Finance Ministers meeting allowed us to cement progress on key priorities, from monitoring macroeconomic and financial developments in the region and globally, to advancing our approaches to regulation of digital assets, sustainable finance, and inclusive growth-oriented policies consistent with what I've called modern supply-side economics. I'll start there. APEC members have affirmed a shared interest in pursuing policies that expand the productive capacity of our economies while also achieving outcomes like reducing inequality and protecting the environment. In the United States, we're doing this through an historic trifecta of legislation: President Biden's bipartisan infrastructure law, CHIPS Act, and Inflation Reduction Act. I'm pleased that other APEC economies recognize the potential of this strategy and are pursuing similar policies, including ones that support research and development, invest in infrastructure, and drive labor force participation. We've also aligned on the importance of addressing global challenges. Our joint work centers on unlocking the flow of sustainable finance, including through exploring ways to drive the development of credible climate commitments and to create effective and high-integrity voluntary carbon markets. We also agree that engagement with the private sector is critical, as is engagement with international financial institutions. The Biden administration's efforts to accelerate the transition to a net zero economy range from our launch of the Principles for Net Zero Financing and Investment to our call to evolve the multilateral development banks, to our support for the transition to clean energy in economies including Indonesia and Vietnam through just energy transition partnerships. Our discussions have revealed the ways other APEC members are also pursuing meaningful work. There's also commitment to continued work on the responsible development of digital assets, where many APEC economies are leading the way. We see increasing adoption of digital asset technologies across the region and note their potential to increase financial inclusion and reduce the cost of cross-border transactions. We also recognize that digital asset technologies carry risks and appreciate the need for proper regulation and other strategies to manage those risks. Of course, chairing the APEC finance ministers meeting is only one aspect of the United States' much broader commitment to deepening our engagement across the Asia-Pacific region. As one example, Treasury is actively engaged in the ongoing work to reach a substantial conclusion of the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework. This would be a monumental achievement for IPEF members, addressing issues from climate change to supply chain security. And since IPEF members collectively account for 40% of global GDP, it would be significant for the global economy as well. Responsibly managing the U.S.-China economic relationship has also been a key priority throughout my time in San Francisco. As you know, I met with Vice Premier He Lifeng, my Chinese counterpart, here last week, and I had a productive meeting with China's new finance minister, Lan Fuan, this week. President Biden and I believe strongly in advancing the values we share with our allies and partners in the Asia-Pacific and beyond, while also pursuing a healthy and stable economic relationship with China. Going forward, we hope to build on the foundation we have laid to further deepen communication, stabilize the relationship, and make progress on key issues. There's hard work ahead of us, but I believe our engagements here have moved us along the right path. As the United States nears the end of a productive APEC host year, I'm impressed by all we have collectively accomplished across our priority areas. We congratulate Peru on its upcoming host year and look forward to supporting its work. And through APEC and otherwise, the United States will remain committed to deepening our economic ties with the Asia-Pacific. Advancing our shared vision is crucial to the success of Asia-Pacific economies, and it supports jobs, growth, and resilience at home in the United States as well. Now I'll be happy to take your questions.
Thank you, everyone. We'll start with Victoria Dendrinu from Bloomberg.
Thank you. Hi, Secretary. I wanted to ask you about U.S. debt.
About what?
Sorry? About U.S. debt. Moody's a few days ago lowered its outlook on the debt, and they cited, in part political dysfunction, but also debt affordability. I was just wondering, given that we're less than a week away from a potential shutdown and we're seeing interest costs soar still, do you think they're right in being concerned about these two things? And then more broadly, regarding the potential shutdown next week, I'm just wondering, and especially given the U.S. role these days, if you're concerned that it diminishes the credibility of the U.S. as its leadership. Thank you.
Thank you for that question. Let me start with the Moody's decision. They maintained the U.S. AAA rating, but indicated that there's a negative outlook. This is a decision that I disagree with. The American economy is fundamentally strong, and Treasury securities remain the world's preeminent safe and liquid asset. We have enjoyed over the past several years an historically fast economic recovery from a deep recession. Our unemployment rate is near historic lows. Inflation has come down significantly, and our economy grew by almost 5% in the third quarter. Now, it's true that resilient U.S. economic growth has been a factor pushing up interest rates recently. That's something that reflects the fundamental strength of the U.S. economy, not weakness. Now, it is true that higher interest rates, if they last, do create a challenge, an additional challenge to debt sustainability. The President and I are completely committed to a credible and sustainable fiscal path. The president has signed into law $1 trillion over the next decade in deficit reduction. We've made very meaningful investments that will raise our tax collections by investing in the Internal Revenue Service, and put in place a corporate minimum tax, lowered spending on prescription drugs. And the president has proposed an additional $2.5 trillion of deficit reduction over the next decade, in addition to what's already been done and the reductions in the bipartisan agreement earlier this year. You asked about the potential shutdown, and I would simply say that given the strides that I just described and the strength of the U.S. economy, a shutdown is something that poses an unnecessary economic headwind in a moment when the U.S. economy is doing well and moving in the right direction. So it's critical that House Republicans do their job and work in a bipartisan manner so we sustain this progress. I know that discussions are active in Congress on trying to find a path forward, and the administration is engaging closely in discussions with Congress. I'm hopeful we'll find a satisfactory solution.
Thank you. Let's go to Andy Duran, Wall Street Journal next.
Hi, Secretary Yellen. I wanted to ask about the Chinese economy and I guess concerns about the possibility or the fact that Chinese exports are increasing and that exports could increase dramatically as they manage their economic situation. There are already signs that in certain clean energy sectors, there's been huge increases in exports from China and flooding global markets. Is that something that APEC discussed today or should discuss this week? And is that becoming a more urgent concern for you and for the United States? And is there anything that the U.S. Should do or is contemplating doing in response to Chinese export dumping?
So this really was not something that APEC discussed in great detail, although we did talk about the slowdown in the Chinese economy, and I think agreed that it presents a downside risk to the economic outlook that could affect probably not so much the United States, but many APEC economies that have deep trade relations. Certainly in my bilateral discussions with the Vice Premier, we did talk about issues of oversupply that have arisen and could arise in the future in industries that China is investing in very heavily. And I do consider that a risk. We both endorse the notion that we should have a level playing field, fair trade relations, and to the extent that some of the investments in these industries reflect China channeling financial resources to firms that produce in these industries, and that there could result in overcapacity. That is an issue that we talked about and that I think they understand.
Thank you. Let's take the next question. Dave Lauder, Reuters.
Hi, thank you, Secretary. You mentioned in your remarks the IPEF discussions that are going on alongside this APEC conference, and so that this could be a monumental event if it were to reach a substantial conclusion. And I wanted to ask you whether you felt that you expect there to be a substantial conclusion during this week, particularly on the trade side of things, or if this is something that might take a bit longer to come to fruition. Thank you.
So my understanding is that very substantial progress has been made on 3 of the 4 pillars, and on the trade pillar, there is also been negotiations taking place for quite some time, that there's been significant progress, but it looks not to be complete, like something that is likely to require further work. Nevertheless, in a number of areas that I think are critically important to the United States, like supply chains and the environment, sustainable finance, we've made a huge amount of progress, and we've made progress on trade too, but it appears not to be complete.
Thank you. Let's go next to Rentaro Tabita, Nikkei.
Thank you for choosing me. I would like to ask about U.S. economic involvement in the Indo-Pacific region.
In the where?
Indo-Pacific region. Today, IPEF ministers failed to reach agreement on the trade pillar. How do you expect to demonstrate U.S. economic involvement in the trade field in this region? Thank you.
Well, first, as I indicated, I think that substantial progress has been made on the trade pillar, although there appear to be remaining issues. But look, the United States has been working to deepen our relationship with countries in the APEC region for quite some time in many different ways. Our chairmanship of APEC this year is one of the ways. All the work that has gone into the meetings that we have held here is one way in which we've deepened ties. We are deepening our trade and investment ties. This is something that's good for the United States and also good for countries in the APEC region. We're working constructively on supply chain issues, deepening our relationships. Just during my time as secretary, I visited, I believe, 6 APEC countries, and in places like Vietnam, Indonesia, we're deepening our supply chain relationships. Some of this is through APEC, through IPEF, but some is through bilateral discussions as well. And we're working very constructively together on climate change, which is a concern that is shared by all the economies in the APEC region. And we've done a lot of work to address it jointly. And working with the multilateral development banks, we had a lunch today with ABAC, met with representatives of the private sector. Many financial institutions have voluntarily taken on net zero commitments. We've engaged in discussions about how the public and private sector can work together in our economies to promote sustainable investment. We're deeply involved in JETPs, or Just Energy Transition Partners, with Vietnam and with Indonesia. So there is a great deal that has been taking place to deepen our relationships.
Thank you. We'll take the last question. Amr Mudni, AP.
Excuse me. Thank you, Secretary. To what extent did you hear from your counterparts here at APEC about the U.S. response to the Israel-Gaza conflict? And at this point, how concerned are your counterparts about how this conflict could potentially cause serious tumult to the global economy?
Well, we did talk about risk to the global economic outlook, and I believe there was a strongly shared view that it's important for all of us to work to do everything we can to contain the conflict between Israel and Hamas so that it doesn't become a broader regional conflict, that if it does, it could pose risks to the global outlook that all of us would be concerned about. And I think the general view is that we've not seen, this suffering that's taking place because of this atrocity against Israel and all of the suffering in Gaza and the need for humanitarian aid. That's top of mind, I believe, for all of us. We've not really seen yet much economic impact from what's happening, but we are concerned and broadly view it as critical not to see the conflict expand.
Thank you, everyone. That concludes the press conference.
原来好的益生菌真的可以帮助入睡。太阳星全效克菲尔益生菌是国家认证 AB 克菲尔益生菌，含7种有身份证的专利活菌，能产生伽巴、色氨酸等助眠因子，难怪吃了更快入睡，也睡得更好。太阳星全效克菲尔益生菌也是台湾市场上唯一添加克菲尔乳杆菌 M1 的产品。这是由台湾知名的大学季转，对季节敏感、调整体质的朋友，真的是一大福音。还有这支还添加被称为超级食物的羽衣甘蓝萃取物，不少研究都指出十字花科蔬菜有助抗炎及防癌，像是羽衣甘蓝含有高量的叶黄素、贝塔胡萝卜素、维生素 K、维生素 C、叶酸等丰富营养素。太阳星全效克菲尔益生菌专利制成，无塑化剂、无重金属、无人工添加物、无410项农药、无香料调味剂、无防腐剂、无色素，7大保证、7大认证，觉得好安心。每日克菲尔时刻美好 ，Good Feel Feel Good， 快点购下单！太阳星全效克菲尔益生菌。